Today, I'm Derek Fildebrandt. You're watching The Pipeline on January 27th, 2021. I'm coming to you live from our downtown Calgary studio. Joining me also from another location in Calgary is Dave Naylor, news editor of the Western Standard. How you doing, Dave?
Very well, Derek. Yourself?
Beautiful. And Corey Morgan, who's out in the field today from somewhere. Corey, where are you today?
I'm cold and hungry, and I'm going to remedy that soon. I'm in Bashaw, Alberta. So this is about 10 kilometers north of Mirror, where the Whistle Stop Cafe is, where he's been defying the lockdown orders. A gentleman named Chris Scott, who I spoke to earlier when I grabbed a coffee on the way up.
Corey,
this is a restaurant. Yeah.
We're going to get into it. You have to let us
Okay. Yeah, you bet. This is a restaurant called the Noble Fox. It's a Mexican restaurant up here. From all I've heard, it has fantastic food. The menu looks great, and he's opening up because he can't afford to stay closed.
This is an intro. We're going to get to it. Don't worry.
Right on.
Okay, well, we've got a lot of great topics to get into today. As Corey is evidently eager to talk about, we're going to talk about the Alberta Spring, businesses reopening in defiance of the government lockdown. We'll be talking about a new poll showing that Westerners are pretty much on our own when it comes to fighting for the Keystone XL pipeline. The rest of the country says it's time to move on. Westerners are saying not so fast. And we'll finish up with a discussion about, should we vet the Governor General, our effective head of state in Canada, before we appoint them, or should we just appoint people that check off some nice token boxes? We'll see. So those are our three topics today. First, we're just going to quickly put it to Dave to tee up what's happening with these rogue business reopenings, and then we're going to go to Corey.
Well, Derek, there's resentment and anger growing, especially in rural Alberta, to the COVID-19 lockdown regulations, especially when it comes to little pubs where Corey's at now. I talked to Chris Scott yesterday at the Whistle Stop in Mirror, and he says it's just, they're losing cash. They cannot afford to lose any more money, and that's why he opened up. And he says, if you come and arrest him, go ahead. All he's trying to do is make a living, put food on his dinner table. Another pub in Moseley tried to open up yesterday, the Moseley Pub and Grill. They lasted a few hours. They were very busy. The authorities came and shut them down. And again, it was the same thing. The owner, Cassie Ross, says, they just need to get open, and the only way they can get their voices heard is to do something drastic, like reopening. There's been social media campaigns about urging all businesses to open in Alberta on the 27th, which is today. I'm not sure how many are following that, but certainly a growing sentiment among business owners that enough is enough.
Okay, well, we're going to go to Corey here. Corey, we know you are in the middle of nowhere when the big city you reference as the location on the map is Mirror, Alberta. So you're when we say you're in the field, we mean it nearly literally, that you're nearly in a field. Corey, why don't you tell us what you're doing there?
Sure. Well, I was just very interested as a person who owned a small bar in a rural area. I worked out in these places. These are social hubs. They're really important to the local community, for people to meet, for local businesses and the works. And I just wanted to come out in person, for one, to support these guys and just to see what happens. There's a lot of tables filling up. The food looks like it's excellent. There's no sign of the authorities yet. So far, they're going to let this remain open. They were making no secret of it. They're in defiance of it. They're still got controls. They're not asking people to come in and cough on each other. They want customers to wear masks on their way in, use sanitizing, same as any big business. In Walmart, you can do it. Why can't you do it here?
Yeah, it was great. In Moseley, Dave, it's Moseley, Alberta, like the place from similar sounding to the hive of scum and villainy in Star Wars. It's Moseley, similar to Mos Eisley. Good nerdy reference there for rural Alberta. It's similar to Vulcan, I guess. In Moseley, I know I saw, Dave, we can't hear you, but in Moseley, I saw a picture just last night someone put a sign on the counter saying Mosley Walmart, saying, "Hey, you can't shut us down if we're a Walmart." Yeah, no, we're starting to see a spring here. Corey, you're at the place. Yeah, I guess you're at another place near Mirror that's opening. The place you're about to go into to eat some Mexican food. I'm guessing this one's illegal too, right?
Yes, it is. It's called the Noble Fox. It's a Mexican restaurant. It's been here a few years. They're also licensed, and they've got people sitting in, because I know as a restaurant owner, I mean, you can do takeout. It'll keep you going a little bit, but realistically, you need sit down patrons. You need the liquor sales. That's where your margins are. That's how you pay your lease, how you pay your staff. And these guys are just at the end of their rope. So I'm happy to see them trying. And so far, nobody's holding them up. It seems kind of surreal being in small town Alberta in this snowy, cold weather. I'm looking forward to some enchiladas here, but it's going to be an interesting day. We'll see if anybody shows up to try and shut them down. As Chris said, down in Mirror, the police did come in and they've served him now. There's been no action here yet, but they're anticipating it.
Yeah, we've got someone had a really great point yesterday, and I think there's a good column in this maybe for you, Corey, when you get back near a computer. But someone made the point to me that the province, Jason Kenney, they're saying, well, we know this is hard, but just focus on takeout and delivery. Well, especially in small town Alberta, in most places there is no skip the dishes, and these places are too small to afford their own in-house deliveries. Delivery and home service is just not an option in rural Alberta when you're trying to get pizza out to a farm. You gotta do pickup. You gotta do in service. Is that something you're hearing with these rogue business owners that you're talking to?
Absolutely. I mean, they're just scraping by when it's pickup. I mean, I guess they're lucky they can have that, and that's more viable in an urban environment with population density to warrant it, with services for delivery, things such as that. You just don't have that here. They have to have the ability to seat customers. And as I said, their importance is as a social hub. The neighbors want to see each other. I mean, they live miles apart from each other. This is where you get together. It doesn't mean, and you can do that still by being 6 feet apart. It's important to people. So it's more acute in these rural areas than in urban, I think. People aren't quite realizing that. That's why it's these rural places that are standing up versus urban ones. The bottom line is they're facing bankruptcy or defying the law. So these guys are willing to defy the law, and I really admire them for it.
Well, I think one thing a lot of politicians don't understand when they're locking people down is that to the small business owner, their business is essential. If they're not making money, they lose their business. And if they lose their business, you lose your home. It is wild that, Jason Kenney, I thought was maybe on the right track originally when he said they made a mistake by allowing the big guys to remain open, but not the small guys. But then he backtracked on it. Now the small guys are closed too. It's illegal. I don't know what other term to come up with these restaurant owners other than rogue business owners. And I mean that as a term of endearment. If anyone thinks I'm insulting these people, absolutely not. I'm using rogue in a very positive sense of the word right now. They're just trying to make a living. It's incredible stuff. Corey, before we let you go, do you have anything else?
No, just to let people know, it's not too far in the middle of nowhere. This is just about a half hour east of Red Deer. It's called the Noble Fox. So if they want to come out for some great Mexican food and to help out these establishments, I'm certainly welcome to come out as long as they're open anyways. They're certainly trying, and I hope to see more places doing it.
Yeah, I know Mosley is not too far from my neck of the woods, so I might try and head over to Mos Eisley and see the scum of villainy living in Mos Eisley, who have the audacity to oppose the decrees of the government right now. Thanks for joining us, Corey. It's really cold, so I know it's cold there. I spent Sunday not that far from Mosley, actually, ice fishing, very ill-fated ice fishing expedition. So I know how cold it is out there right now. We're going to let you go, but thanks so much for joining us.
Corey,
all right, thanks, guys.
One quick question, Corey.
Sure, Dave.
Do you deliver?
Might be a little cold by the time I get it down to you, but maybe on my next trip.
I have a microwave, but appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Dave.
Okay, thank you, Corey. All right, Dave. Well,
one thing to keep in mind, Derek, is that Jason Kenney told restaurant owners that he would give them a week's notice before they could open. so they could get inventory and get ready again. But we haven't even had that week's notice, so there's no end in sight to the lockdown. I thought the Health Minister Tyler Shandro may ease a bit of it on Monday, but no, he said no end in sight, and then he went on about new variants of the virus being found in the province. So it doesn't look like the restaurant owners in Alberta are going to have any satisfaction anytime soon.
Hey, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the province this time extended the lockdown indefinitely. That is putting no end date on it whatsoever, so that they don't have to go through the political hassle of telling people that they're locking Albertans down, destroying businesses while they are while their MLAs are jetting off to nice warm places, not taking their own advice. Am I incorrect in saying that lockdown was indefinitely extended?
No, I think you're correct. And every time Shandro or Kenny get asked when are we reopening, the answer is always the same. When it's safe. As somebody pointed out yesterday, there's always going to be a variant from somewhere. Right now we're dealing with Great Britain and South Africa, but soon there'll be one from the States. Soon there'll be one from wherever people are. So they're just getting all fed up with it with the lockdowns.
Dave, I don't mean to spill the beans too much, but I know you're about to work. You're going to have a breaking story soon. Some of these rogue businesses are very not happy. They're going an extra step, not just reopening to the public in defiance of the provincial government lockdowns here, but some of them are, I think, coming up with a bit of, let's say, limited no-serve customer list. Why don't you tell us about that? I know we're going to be spilling the beans a little bit here, but tell us about it.
Yeah, there's some restaurants, specifically one called Paul's Pizza in Airdrie, and I'll be talking to them as soon as we're done with this podcast. But they put a lifetime ban. They will not serve Jason Kenney. They put a lifetime ban on Dr. Dina Hinshaw. They're not going to serve her. Pubs in England did this several months ago when they were going through basically the same thing. And they put lifetime bans on any member of parliament that voted in favor of the lockdown. And this got great public support by all those people who were locked out of their favorite pub. And, at least one place in Alberta is going to start doing the same thing. So Jason Kenney's going to have to look for his pizza elsewhere other than Paul's Pizza in Airdrie.
I have a feeling it won't be the only place.
No.
Okay, well, in more cheery news, we all know what happened with Keystone XL. President Biden, on his very first day in office, just hours into the job, signed an executive order killing the Keystone XL pipeline. Not a surprise to anyone who has been, watching American politics for the last year. Biden and nearly every single candidate for the Democratic nomination said that they would cancel this. Jason Kenney, nonetheless, thought it would be a great idea to bet $1.5 billion on a direct investment in the pipeline and put up another $6 billion in loan guarantees. I'm not a huge gambler, but I feel like that kind of money on 50-50 odds is probably not a good bet. Nonetheless, even those of us who don't think it's smart for government to be in the business of business, many of us still wanted to see this pipeline get built. It's absolutely critical to the future of the energy industry in Western Canada. But a new poll shows that, that opinion might not be shared broadly across the country. Why don't you run us through that?
Sure, Derek. It's a new Angus Reid poll. There's a big story on our website, westernstandardonline.com. Got lots of nice graphics and stuff in there. But basically what it says is 59% of all Canadians say, forget about Keystone. It's time to move on, give up the battle. Obviously, that is not representative of the feelings in Alberta and Saskatchewan. 72% in Alberta that say keep fighting for Keystone. 67% in Saskatchewan say the same thing. But Alberta and Saskatchewan are the only provinces that seem to care about it. In Ontario, for example, 62% say, forget about it, Alberta. Let's move on to something else. In Quebec, it goes even higher, 74%. So I guess I don't know where the blame lies there, Derek. I don't know if it's if it's the war room hasn't made a good enough selling job on what the Keystone can bring to the rest of Canada. But even our friends in British Columbia are 60% opposed to fighting for it. So seems like a losing battle if the rest of Canada is not overly interested in joining us there.
Yeah, I mean, no one asked our opinion when the federal government launched a trade war against the United States in retaliation for aluminum tariffs, which affected a radically smaller number of workers in that industry, but they were clustered primarily in Quebec and a lesser extent Ontario. The federal government went to war with Donald Trump, and I think they were right to do it. I think these kinds of tariffs that Donald Trump put in place were unfair. They broke the spirit and the letter of NAFTA, or USMCA now that we call it. The federal government was right to defend against that kind of protectionism from the United States, but they have no interest in doing it whatsoever when it comes to Keystone XL. And it turns out it's not just the federal government that doesn't believe we should do it. It is virtually the majorities, some huge majorities, in every single province outside of Alberta and Saskatchewan. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, no, neither am I. I know we've got Alberta's got $1.5 billion invested in it, and Jason Kenney's asking the Prime Minister to go to Joe Biden and say, hey, please, can we have our money back? But he may have better chances in court because analysis of the free trade agreements that we've signed, both NAFTA and the new one, both seem to sort of technically say that there may be some recess in the courts to try and get some costs back for both taxpayers and TC Energy.
I made that point last week that we have recourse to the courts, but I think I might have actually been wrong, because this was authorized by presidential permit. And when you actually look through the details of that presidential permit or executive order, it says in it that the presidential permit can be revoked at any time and at the cost of Keystone XL, the company building this, that they would actually, at their own cost, have to remove it out of the ground. That's what the executive order says. So I'm actually worried that we might not even have any legal ground. We certainly have a moral ground to stand on. We have ground to stand on that we are supposed to be the best friends and allies of the United States, and that the United States has an interest in buying more oil from Canada rather than importing from overseas and often hostile regimes. But legally, actually, I'm not sure we have much of a leg to stand on anymore. It makes it even more incredible that the Kenney government was willing to invest this kind of money in a project that at best had a 50-50% chance of going forward. This is why we let the private sector make determinations about where they spend money on projects, not governments, something that Jason Kenney agreed with until very recently.
I was just going to say, Derek, it's been a strange life path for Premier Kenney. Not long ago, he was in the same job you had with the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, and he was all anti-government in business, and so he's gone from being very anti-government in business to, giving out $1.5 billion here and there, and obviously, and it wasn't just the one program, but the UCP government's invested in loads of stuff now. And with Trudeau doesn't seem to be willing to put up much of a fight. Let's face it. When asked what he was going to do, he said, "Well, geez, I phoned Joe Biden in November. What else do you want me to do?" And he actually spoke to him this week, and apparently it was brought up. But I'm sure when something like, "Well, Joe, I'm pretty disappointed about the Keystone," nudge, nudge, wink, wink. So. Yeah, it's going to be a tough struggle for Alberta to get any money back.
Yeah, well, I want to bring attention really quickly to a column we had published just a few days ago by Rob Anderson. Rob Anderson is a former PC and Wildrose MLA in Alberta. He's now come on as a columnist for the Western Standard. He published, I think, a really great piece. The title of it, if I'm not mistaken, was "If Ottawa Won't Sanction the U.S., the West Should Sanction Ottawa." The point being, as we were saying earlier, when the aluminum industry was under attack, Ottawa sanctioned Washington. They sanctioned the United States in retaliation to defend those jobs, and they won, effectively. And they've done so many times before when it comes to the auto sector, when it comes to Bombardier and these kinds of guys. The federal government is not shy about taking off the gloves to defend our industries against protectionism, except for now. Right now, Ottawa's doing nothing. Jason Kenney has called on Ottawa to impose sanctions, and I think he's correct in doing so. I think Ottawa should do that. But does he honestly think that Ottawa is going to lift a finger for the West right now? This was met with nothing but laughter by most of the East, most of the media. Even I had to laugh a little bit, not because I thought he had a bad point, but laughing that he thinks there's any chance that Ottawa would do this. There is a 0.0% chance they would do this. I'm not even convinced that the federal government under the Conservatives would do it at this point.
The only ones laughing, Derek, are Jay Hill of the Maverick Party and Paul Hinman of the Wild Rose Independence Party, because it's just stuff like this that's going to just keep drawing members to them like flies.
Yeah, I think so. I think Rob Anderson had a great point in his column that if Ottawa won't sanction the U.S., then the West needs to sanction Ottawa, make them hurt. So in addition to, the regular firewall routine of taking more provincial jurisdiction back, he talked about some great ideas. We could turn off the taps to British Columbia. There's significant Liberal support in especially in the lower mainland of British Columbia. Sorry about your parents, Dave, but they're collateral damage. We could turn off the taps on natural gas and oil, bring them to their knees. Similarly, we should work with Saskatchewan and hopefully Manitoba to turn off the taps on everything going eastwards of them, put the pressure on Ontario and Quebec. If we turn off the natural gas and quite literally let the Eastern bastards freeze in the dark, sorry to use that term, but if we literally turn off the natural gas in the winter, it would create an absolute catastrophe in the East, and it would force the federal government potentially to act. And that's what sanctions are about. They're a middle ground between diplomacy and war. Obviously, we don't believe in war to solve really anything. That's a ridiculous option. So don't even discuss that. And politics is clearly not working. The West does not matter to the federal government, really, regardless of who's in power, but particularly right now. This would be a way of exerting some pressure. At the same time, we could set up some pine beetle inspection stations along the Alberta-BC border and ensure that every single truckload of BC timber is offloaded and painstakingly inspected for pine beetles on environmental protection grounds before they're allowed to pass through our borders. That would bring one of BC's biggest industries to its knees and potentially put some pressure on the BC government to back us putting sanctions on the states. I think most provinces would prefer that sanctions be imposed on the United States than on themselves. So this is not something I think has any chance whatsoever of happening. But I think it was a good point to be made that if the Kenney government was serious about this, it would be willing to impose sanctions on parts of the country that are not backing our right to earn a fair living.
Derek, the people in Eastern Canada should really be careful what they wish for about pipelines. The Democratic governor of Michigan is in the process of shutting down a pipeline that supplies much of the oil for Ontario. Pumps it from through Michigan and into a refinery in Sarnia. So right now, the governor in Michigan is in the process of shutting it down. That oil will stop, barring a court order, a court injunction, and Ontario may be left freezing in the dark because there's no way to get any more oil because there's no cross-Canada pipeline, obviously. So experts in oil and gas, like former Liberal MP Dan McTeague, are sounding the alarms. Nobody seems to be listening to them in Ontario anyways, but they could be in for a world of hurt when that Enbridge line gets shut down.
Indeed. Okay, well, we're going to talk about the GG. We'll keep that part real quick here. Long story short, well, Dave, why don't you make the long story short?
Well, it just gets crazier and crazier. As quickly as I can, there were some allegations last year that Rideau Hall was not a very nice place to work. So they brought in a third-party consulting company who did a big investigation and found out that the Governor General Payette to be blunt, was a bit of a nutcase. She was belittling staff, screaming at them. And a new report today on our website, CBC is reporting that she got physical with her staff, believe it or not. This is supposed to be the Queen's representative. And
well, I don't know about, like, Dave, I've slapped you around when you get out of line. I don't know.
That is true. That is true. And yeah,
every once in a while, you know, if talk isn't working, boss will be the boss.
Yeah, and keep in mind, this is on top of, you know, we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on a stairway that went to nowhere, or she planned it to go up to a private staircase, and it was never built. She didn't want to see the RCMP. They had to hide in cupboards instead of outside her door. She didn't want to see the public. She didn't want to see workers. So, you know, it sounded like she was a bit of a pun, but a bit of a drama queen, Derek. And yeah, she's gone.
Good pun.
Yeah, good pun. So, yep, she's gone, and now the focus is on who's next. You're going to throw your hat in the ring, Derek?
Well, everybody knows that Ottawa Liberals are big fans of me. I mean, it'd be interesting. I mean, I could promise everybody it'd be an interesting reign of terror. I mean, I don't know. But, you know, I bet you, I don't think I'm a particularly good candidate, but I probably pass better vetting. I've actually managed people in my life. I've run a business. I've had people report to me. I've had to demonstrate at least some level of leadership, even if I have to slap them around from time to time. Yeah, I think what we're seeing here is the culmination of what happens when you appoint a governor general, or any job really, purely on tokenism. And I get that some people have said, well, it's a token job, so it should be token people in it. And there is something to be said about rising up different people who might represent parts of the country, parts of the nation that deserve a voice. Julie Payette, let's not forget, is a greatly accomplished woman. She's the first Canadian astronaut in space. First Canadian woman astronaut in space. It's a great accomplishment, and I'm very proud of her. I didn't think she was the worst pick when she was picked. At least I wasn't privy to the vetting, but I thought, at least as far as symbols go, she was a pretty good symbol. I'm very proud. I was very proud of her. I think she was a great symbol for my daughter to look up to. But it was pure tokenism, and Liberals tend to do this. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Michaëlle Jean, I think, was a token, but she ate a seal, and my wife won't let me forget how cool that was when she ate a seal in defense of Newfoundland's sealing industry. I mean, that took some guts, and so I mean, she earned the support of a lot of people when she did that. Probably the enmity too. But I think this is part of the problem of when you're appointing a governor general purely on tokenism. If you're going to do tokenistic appointments, at least vet them. And essentially, they've admitted now that they didn't do a proper vetting process. I think there's a lot of egg on the face of the government here, but I think they're going to shrug it off. I don't think we're going to see much of a change, except that at least for this particular GG, I think they're going to want to at least do some basic reference checks about how well they work with others and what kind of leader they are with their staff under them.
If they'd have done a proper vet on Julie Payette, they would have seen some warning signs because they were out there, and they obviously didn't, or they didn't care, or they didn't pass it on to Justin Trudeau. I mean, just compare her reign, 3.5 years, nothing but weirdness since the beginning. Compare it to David Johnston. He didn't put a foot wrong in his entire career as the Governor General. So I think you're right, Derek. The next candidate will be going under some very serious vetting this time, I think.
Yeah. Well, this week in Canadian Regal News. Hey, I mean, there's been a subgenre of monarchists in Canada that have believed we should have as our Governor General junior members of the royal family. So maybe Harry and Meghan Markle. I'm not saying it's a good idea, but it's been talked about for some time that serving as Governor General, maybe a good role for junior members of the Royals to play. I think until relatively recently, I probably would have been open to the idea that, okay, well, let's let those who are not in the immediate line of succession, I think maybe they would be good. Bring some excitement to the role. It's supposed to be a part of the monarchy. It's an extension of the monarchy in a sense anyway. But I think their behavior as kind of spoiled royal brats has probably soured a lot of Canadians since then. Before all this drama with them, I think there would have been a good case.
I'm a huge monarchist, Derek. I'm not even going to call Prince Harry a prince. I'll call him Harry. He's
not a prince anymore.
He's abandoned his family. To jet across and live in Hollywood in a life of luxury. I think Prince William's doing very well. I think Prince Charles will be like 98 whenever he ascends to the throne. But
I think his mother's going to outlive him.
You know what? You may be right. She's still looking good for 94. So long may she live. God save the Queen.
God save the Queen. Well, that's a great note to leave it at. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, everyone who's watched. Remember, everyone, if those who are already Western Standard members, thank you very much. We have some big news coming with changes to your membership. We're going to be putting in place a soft paywall. So if you're currently a member of the Western Standard, we're going to do our best to port your membership over so that you don't hit the paywall. You'll be able to log in with that new information. At the same time, if you're not yet a member of the Western Standard, soon, I'm sorry, we're going to have to force you to pay. If you want to read much of our stuff, you'll be able to sign up and get access to 10 articles a month if you sign up for the newsletter. And after that, you'll have to become a member of the Western Standard. We got to pay the bills around here. We're working hard. Dave, you guys can't see it, but Dave is actually in a dungeon. I lock him in there. It's normally dark, and I tell him to type news all day. We got to pay the people who are working at the Western Standard for their work. So we're putting in place a limited paywall. So I strongly recommend and would request that you all go online, westernstandardonline.com, go to the membership section, become a member, sign up. You'll be supporting independent, bailout-free Western news and commentary. It's very important, I think, for us to be supporting this. And soon enough, it'll be a requirement if you want to continue to read the Western Standard. Thank you all very much for your time. Thank you, Dave, for joining me. God save the Queen. God bless the West.